When it was time for me to go to college, I actually was not ready to go. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go to school for design. Who was I in this experience? How did I show up in this experience? Part of being an adult is accepting that you're going to grow apart from people that at one point in time you thought was going to be in your life forever. Learn about compound interest. Learn about the ways in which you can make your money work for you. There's so much power in self-awareness and taking accountability, taking responsibility for your life, and owning the choices that you make. No one can take that from you. No one can tell you anything about you that you don't already know. Don't let people tell you who you are. You define who you are, and your world will reflect that. I am so scared to record this right now because this is my second time recording this video. I originally recorded this video about 4 days ago. When I went to pull everything off my camera, 20 minutes of footage was missing. I want to apologize in advance because I am in New York, and so it's bound to be pretty noisy. I will try to isolate as much of the noise that I can. But today we're getting into a topic that I've wanted to talk about for some time now. Not that anyone asked for it, but I've seen a number of people in their 30s sharing the lessons that they learned in their 20s, and I've learned a lot of lessons, a lot of hard lessons. And some days I think to myself, how the fuck did I survive it? And that could be a bit dramatic, but in the grand scheme of things, I had a really hard time in my 20s. My 20s were hands down probably the roughest decade of my life, knock on wood. But I had a really tough time. So I want to get into some of the things that I learned. Hopefully there's someone out there who this can help. Maybe you're able to learn from some of my mistakes and make better choices, and you're able to apply some of the lessons that I've learned to your situation. I'm going to be breaking this video down into different categories or facets of life. And I think a good place to start is my relationship with myself, the state of my mental health, and just where I stood in relationship between me and me. Some of the other areas we'll cover is career, money, friends, relationships, and yeah, I think that's about it. I have to say that when I was in my teens to early 20s, I was very dramatic. And what I mean by that is everything seemed like the end of the world. Anything that went wrong in my personal relationships, my romantic relationships, my friendships, it seemed like the end of the world. And it really wasn't. I think that I didn't learn. I soon learned, but I didn't at the time know how to process my feelings and my emotions, and they felt very big for me. And I didn't know what to do with it. I'd never gone to therapy or ever even thought about seeking support. At the time, the conversation about therapy wasn't what it is today, and all of the resources and mediums that exist today did not exist back then. There was no BetterHelp or what's the other one? There's another one. I can't even think right now, but they didn't exist. So I was sort of left to my own devices. And from the time I was able to work, money was my main motivation. Money was top of mind of everything that I was doing. And I think because I was living in an environment that I wanted out of, it wasn't abusive or anything like that. It was just very chaotic and unhealthy and pretty toxic. And I was miserable. And so I figured, instead of complaining, let me just save up my money and get out of here and never look back. And I rode that wave for a bit, but then life got in the way and I sort of lost sight of what my main goal was. I went to college for women's wear design. I was very passionate about design. I even took some pre-college courses at FIT my senior year of high school. But when it was time for me to go to college, I actually was not ready to go. I wasn't sure that I wanted to go to school for design. I knew that it was something I loved learning about and that I was very curious about, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it professionally. And at that time, it was my belief that whatever I go to school for is what I'm ultimately going to end up doing for the rest of my life, I guess. My mom let me take a gap year, but once that year was up, she was like, okay, you got to enroll in school. So I don't know what you want to do, but you're going to school either way. And so I was kind of put between a rock and a hard place, and I had to go. Reluctantly, I went. And it didn't last very long. I ended up dropping out, which brings me to my first lesson. Stay in school. Stay in school. I know you might want to quit at times. I know it gets hard. I don't have many regrets in life, but one of the 2 or 3 that I do have, it's that I didn't finish school. It's that I have a loan for something that I did not complete. I have nothing to show for it. I mean, no, I take that back. I did learn. I did take away a lot of knowledge and a lot of learned skills from that experience. That's what I'm paying for. So it's not all bad. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I am someone that I have to finish what I start. I don't think I was always that way. When I was younger, I was more like, okay, let me try this thing out, see if I like it. If not, push it to the side and move on to the next thing. But now, I would say post-college, because I learned this lesson very quickly. And I think I just wasn't motivated enough to go back, because again, I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. And I don't want to take out more loans for a degree that I'm not even sure about. I don't want to do that. So having developed this discipline that I have to finish whatever it is that I start, now it's something that eats at me sometimes. You know, not in a hardcore way, but when I think about it, it's like, oh, I wish I finished that. I wish I got my degree and then just moved on with life, but I didn't. So let me be a living testament. Finish school, do the thing, get the diploma, and then do whatever you want to do. If the career path you choose to go down is completely unrelated to your degree, oh well, so be it. But at least you did the thing. You started it, you finished it, and hopefully you'll be able to apply the things that you've learned along the way, for sure. When I left school, I started an independent small clothing brand, and I kept at it for about 5 years until I quickly learned it was not what I thought it was going to be. And what I mean by that is being young, starting a business, and wearing every single hat. When you join a company, you have the creative director, you have designers, you have a head of marketing, a head of finance, and the list goes on. You get where I'm going with it. When you start out, you are wearing all of those hats. And what I quickly learned was that I am the idea person. I am very much the creative, the person behind it all. But I also am good at and find enjoyment in the operational aspect of running a business. And I could do that like in my sleep. But the technical aspect of it all, doing all the sewing, making the tech packs, the line sheets, all of that stuff, in addition to styling, photography. Like I have friends who are photographers, so they help me out a lot. But at times I had to be the photographer too. I was doing so much that I burnt out so fast. But I am very glad that this is something that I took on and tried my hand at a very young age, and I learned so much from it. I gained so much experience. I met so many people and built so many relationships that still exist today. And so I'm grateful that I went that route. Once I realized that I was starting to burn out and that I was creating things that I just did not resonate with, and I started to disconnect from it all, I was unaware of it at the time, but I had unintentionally placed so much of my worth and my value and my identity in what I was doing that when it all started to fade out and slip away, I experienced a severe identity crisis that I just spiraled. I fell into a deep depression. I was no longer going out as much as I used to. The friends that I had at the time, I no longer felt gravitated to. The relationship that I was in at the time, I no longer felt connected to. And I knew that something was just off. It felt wrong. It felt like I was living with a person, myself, who I did not know, who I thought I knew, but it turns out I don't know. Now that I'm essentially stripping myself of everything, who am I? And I don't think up until that time I'd ever been faced with that question. And that was the first time in my life I also felt alone, because I didn't know how to articulate what I was feeling, what I was going through, to be able to communicate it to those that I still was very close with. I started to feel kind of crazy. I really started to feel kind of crazy. And I just remember saying to myself, like, what is wrong with me? Like, something is wrong with me. I don't feel like myself. I feel very off. And it was freaking me out. And my mom one day, this is after my boyfriend at the time and I had parted ways, and I wasn't going out with my friends, like I said, so I was home more. And my mom came in one day, and my grandmother and I'll never forget, we were sitting at the dining room table, and my mom, this was circa 2011, 2012. She put a DVD. That's how you know I'm like really throwing it back. She put a DVD on the table and was like, you guys have to watch this. It's so good. It's like life changing. And my mom is really funny. So we're like, okay. And I brought my laptop down. I don't think we watched it on the TV. I just grabbed my laptop and popped it in there. And my grandmother and I sat at the table and we watched it. And that is when the floodgates just opened for me. It's like it cracked open this unknown world for me, this unknown world of information, and gave me a lot to think about. Also offered me a lot of perspective into just life as I previously knew it. I just want to say, even though I credit The Secret with being my gateway to it all, that isn't the first reference that I think of when it comes to recommending to others. And I say that because since I was a child, I have always been a very analytical, curious person. So much so that when something piques my interest, I immediately start peeling back the layers. Like, I get deep. So when I'm reading a book like The Secret at 21, 22, I'm like, okay, where did they get this information from though? Like, that's where my mind goes. Like, this is fascinating. I'm really interested to learn more about this, but where did they get this from? Who did they study? There's so many people involved in that book and that documentary that I went down a full rabbit hole of research about individual people throughout the book to see who they studied, who their teachers were, what books they've read. And I started learning more and more and more and more, that I quickly learned that The Secret was the surface. Like, it wasn't the deep stuff. It's not where you start. It's where you go eventually. It's where you end up eventually. But that the true work isn't about these isolated moments of trying to manifest individual things into your life. It's about being. Being equals having. And so your goal should be to focus on your beingness, because that is the launch pad for everything. That is the foundation from which all is derivative from. That way you don't have to work so hard against the grain to try to will things into being, because it will come to you automatically from your beingness, as long as who you're being is in alignment with that thing. More on that later. But I remember going back to my mom, like, do you have anything more like this? I see all these names like Abraham Hicks, Joseph Murphy, and that's when I learned that my mom over the years had been reading spiritual, metaphysical, and LOA books, and she gave them to me. She had a book from Abraham Hicks, a book from Louise Hay. I want to say she had Think and Grow Rich, and I later down the line learned of Joseph Murphy, Neville Goddard, and a few others, but those two are my top two. I love their teachings, their lectures. I've been studying and living by their work for years. And once those floodgates were open for me, my life just started to morph and change. And I really started to apply the teachings from what I was learning to my life, because I realized I hadn't really given much thought to who I was, who I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up in the world, how I wanted to truly and genuinely impact the lives of others in a real way. Because up until that point, if I'm honest, I was connecting with people in a very superficial way. The way that I made friends, I I didn't give much thought to who they were as a person or what I believed defined a good friend, a solid friend. It was more, oh, they're really pretty, they dress really cool, I'm interested in getting to know them and maybe being friends. I didn't think about, are they kind? Are they supportive? Are they honest? Are they authentic to who they want to be right now? Because when we're kids or when we're in junior high school, we're not really thinking about those things, you know? Similarly, when we see a guy, it's like, oh, he's cute, or he's on the football team, he's on the basketball team. And we even see these ideals depicted in movies and TV shows. So it's like we are conditioned with certain ideas from a very early age, whether it be from what we're watching on our TV screens or what we see in our environment. It's not until we get out into the world or life kicks our ass that we really sit down and think about these things. I'm grateful that it came to me as early as it did. I realized that I hadn't been very intentional or thoughtful about the friends that I chose, guys that I was dating, and why I was dating them. I didn't give deep thought to these things. And so I definitely say that my lesson in that is to take your time and to be intentional and to be very aware about the energy that you allow into your atmosphere, the personalities you allow into your space, the environments you choose to place yourself in. Be thoughtful about it, because if you haven't reached a certain level of awareness, you are much more susceptible to the influence of others unconsciously. Like, you won't even realize it until you're out of it and you're able to have a bird's eye view of an undesirable situation or event that took place, and you're like, I didn't start behaving in this way until I started hanging around this person or these people. Or you notice that you're tolerating things that you know aren't right. Protect your space at all costs, because you will thank yourself later. I'm telling you. I definitely took the coward way, getting out of a lot of friendships and relationships. I would start distancing myself from people instead of having the conversation, because in my head, I told myself it just won't be received. It won't be received well, or they won't understand me, or it's so uncomfortable, I don't want to have the conversation. And being young and dumb, I just kept doing it. Anytime I wanted to get out of something, that is the way that I would take. And not to make an excuse here at all, but sometimes it is about knowing your audience and knowing who you're talking to. That definitely has its place. When you already know someone does not respond to critique or any opinions that might be opposite to theirs, we know who those people are. And so that has its place too. But ultimately, I do believe that when you have a friend or you're dating someone who you genuinely care about, have the conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not fun. It's a part of being an adult. Me personally, as a friend, I want to know if I do something that rubs my friend the wrong way or hurts their feelings. I could have the best intentions, right? It could be completely unintentional, or make a joke that they don't think is funny. It could be anything. It could be sharing different views that we each feel passionately about. What does that look like within our friendship? Is there a path forward in order to make your friends feel safe and comfortable in your space? It's important to be aware. I want to be aware. And so now, as an adult, I'm completely okay with having uncomfortable conversations, because I know that it comes with the territory. And this is for the relationships that I care to maintain and or salvage, or people that I love and care about in a very real way, in a very deep way. But there is something to be said about those people that you voice the way that you feel about something that they did, and you were met with defense or denial or combativeness. Those people, that's what I mean when I say they aren't receptive to feedback from others. And it could be 9 times out of 10, in my experience, is because they're not yet secure and self-aware, because what they're hearing taps into an insecurity that you may be unaware of, and they could be unaware of too. Not everyone has reached a level of self-awareness that they are very in tune with their triggers and what triggers them. And when you know that, their response can be met with compassion. And even though you're being compassionate, that doesn't mean that you then be a doormat. What they did was unacceptable, and you go your own way until they're able to come to terms with and accept that what they did to you was not okay, and that they really understand the weight of what they did, and they make better choices moving forward. Because I'm completely okay with telling someone we're just in completely different places, or we no longer share the same interests and there's a disconnect. You know what I mean? Like, you're not zigging where I'm zagging, or we're not riding the same wavelength. We're just heading down completely different paths. And that doesn't mean I'm heading down a good path and you're heading down a bad path. It's just different paths. And that's okay. People grow apart. Part of being an adult is accepting that you're going to grow apart from people that at one point in time you thought was going to be in your life forever. That's just not how it goes. You might have heard the saying, people come into your life for a season, a lifetime, or a reason. And I think that some of the sadness and grief that we feel when it's time to let go of a friendship or relationship that's no longer serving us, a lot of the time it's unintentionally self-inflicted. And what I mean by that is, just by the nature of our being, try to make everyone last a lifetime. Everyone is not meant to last a lifetime. I genuinely believe that everyone that comes into your life is a teacher. They are there to teach you something about you. And if you are too focused on them and what they did or what happened outside of you, you will often miss the lesson. And so you want to always bring it back to you. Like, what did this experience with this person give me? Genuinely, what did I learn from this experience? Who was I in this experience? How did I show up in this experience? Those are the questions you want to ask yourself. And it's okay to be caught up in the outside chatter and details for a little bit, you know, and ruminate in it. We're human. It's going to happen. It's bound to happen. But you don't want to get lost in that. You don't want to lose your way in that. And so that's what I'm saying, that once you get through the mud, so to speak, you have to work your way back to you. And that looks different for everyone. For me, I've been doing this so long that I've disciplined myself to look at myself before I look at anyone or anything else. Like, why is this thing occurring in front of me? Why is this thing showing up in front of me right now? What does this tell me about me? What is this revealing to me? What is this telling me about the beliefs I hold about myself, or the beliefs that I hold about friendship, the beliefs that I hold about men, women, whoever, relationships? My mind automatically goes there now. But this is like years in the making. I wasn't always that way. I would get really caught up and lost in the details and fucking spiral. I would spiral. And it was bad. Depressed. 9 times out of 10, I had nothing to be depressed about. I was just being, like I said earlier, dramatic. I'd say the lesson that I learned about money is to invest early. Invest as early as you can, as much as you can, even if that's $1, even if that's $5. If you have it to spare, put it away. Learn about investing, learn about index funds, learn about high yield savings accounts, learn about the stock market, learn about compound interest, learn about the ways in which you can make your money work for you. Develop as many streams of passive income as you can. Save aggressively in your 20s. Live it up, live a little, obviously. You're only going to be in your 20s but once, but your future self will thank you for it. And there are things that I did that my future self, I'm very grateful for today, but there's a lot more I could have done. And I didn't really start saving aggressively until I was 29. So it was at the tail end, which is fine. We all start somewhere, but I wish I would have started at like 16 or 18. Yeah, I really do wish, but we can't go back. So learn from me. whatever age you are at this point in time watching this video, put away what you can. And I guess to wrap this video up, in summary, the biggest lesson that I've learned is that I am my soulmate. I spend the most time with me. I am responsible for my life. I have to take accountability for the decisions that I make, the choices that I make, and where they've led me and where they will lead me. You cannot just take credit for all the good and none of the bad. You have to learn how to take accountability for yourself, for your life, not from a guilt or blaming place and being hard on yourself. You need to be kind to yourself. You need to be most compassionate and most empathetic with yourself. You need to be your best friend and your number one cheerleader, because the only person that you live with 24 hours a day is you. And you want to be able to give yourself as much credit as you can. There's so much power in self-awareness and taking accountability, taking responsibility for your life, and owning the choices that you make. No one can take that from you. No one can tell you anything about you that you don't already know. Don't let people tell you who you are. You define who you are, and your world will reflect that. Your world is an exact reflection of the beliefs that you hold about yourself, the world, and everything within it. So pay attention. Pay attention before you deny it, before you cast that idea aside. Really have a hard look at yourself, at your life. Are you where you want to be? And if not, why not? What's stopping you? What changes can you make today? What choices have you made that doesn't really serve you today and it won't serve you in the future in your life today? What company are you keeping? What friends are you keeping? What type of people are you dating? Do they support the idea that you hold of you now, or the idea that you hold of yourself that you are striving to become or aiming to become? Those are the questions that you want to dive deep into and ask yourself and be honest about. Or don't do anything that I've suggested here in this video. It's up to you. Again, it's your life. You have to do what's best for you, like I've done what's best for me. And I can honestly say that at the ripe age of 34, I genuinely like myself. It's taken a lot for me to learn who I want to be and how I want to show up in the world and how I want to show up for myself. And I've done a lot of work. I've worked so hard to get where I am today. And at times it took a lot out of me. It took more than I thought that I had to give. So I hope that I'm a living testament that you can do it too. Hopefully by the end of this video, or maybe you're already on the straight and narrow path of where you want to be, which is incredible. Kudos to you. And just keep doing it. That's my TED Talk for today. I think I'm going to do more of these. If there's anything that I touched on in this video that you'd like me to get more into, let me know down in the comments, and I'm happy to. And if you don't already follow me on Insta and you'd like to join me over there, I welcome you with open arms. And yeah, this is great. I'm gonna get out of here. Big love and hugs to each and every one of you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.